swordsman needs more than a sword.
The dark and gritty reboot era of the mid to late 2000s is back, and somehow turned out to be good? Yeah, for those who weren't aware, a lot of the more family-friendly IPs during this time were taking a much darker turn than the fans signed up for. Because that's what the market seemed to indicate what people wanted after stuff like GTA, Call of Duty, and Halo dominated the market. So we got stuff like Ratchet Deadlocked, clearly taking inspiration from Halo with one of the darkest, most serious stories in the franchise. Spyro went from colorful 3D collectathon platformer with plenty of charming characters to a darker beat-em-up story-driven trilogy. Jak 2 took the beloved, colorful, and family-friendly precursor legacy, threw it into a dark and oppressive GTA future where Jak's ticked off, has guns, and other things that'll potentially get me demonetized just mentioning them. And also inspiring Shadow 05 by doing most of the same things, and I think I can vouch for everyone when I say that I never expected this game to ever get a sequel, and boom, in 2024 we got Shadow Generations. But thankfully, none of these examples came anywhere near what happened to Bomberman.
What? It's just an ordinary... Oh my goodness!
Making this the worst shift during that era, while everyone else pretty much stayed faithful to what made the gameplay work so well, or stayed pretty close to the already established character designs. Regardless, those dark days are behind us as of the 2010s. And there's been a lot more balance in how darker elements are implemented into established IP games ever since, especially in the 2020s. Then it happened to Pac-Man. What?
Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! Everybody stay calm!
Listen, I was as shocked as the next guy when I found out the secret level episode that focused on Pac-Man looked nothing like the Pac-Man I knew. And this was made by the people behind the CGI cutscenes in Shadow 05. We've really come full circle, haven't we? At the time this short released, I think it came across as more baffling than anything else, purely just for how different it was compared to how every other IP was represented. I'm not a Mega Man guy, but I loved that short, as I felt it was a good way of introducing people to the series, while Concord's, just kind of exist to remind people of Concord's short-lived existence. Gosh, I wish Sony would stop chasing live service, it's still not going well! Shortly afterward, Bandai-Namco announced Shadow Labyrinth at last year's Game Awards back in December. And suddenly, the mere existence of this short made perfect sense, because it's been officially confirmed to be a prologue to the game, and ultimately part of a larger UGSF timeline consisting of a bunch of Bandai Namco games? How the heck did I not know this existed? Yes, I was one of the people who were pretty skeptical on this game when it was announced, but whenever the game would show up at a Nintendo Direct or just some random trailers online, the game started looking more and more promising. And then they released the Maze trailer, and that completely sold me on the game, because these mazes have boss fights attached to them. A concept actually originating from a mode in Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 Plus, which by the way is exclusive to the Switch version. I love this mode. I think that it coming back, being available on every console, and technically giving us Championship Edition free is just pretty neat. That said, I was recently given the opportunity to play a short demo of the game exactly 1 month before the release date. Nothing unusual about the official Pac-Man account DMing me on Twitter on a random Tuesday like, hey, here's a demo code and a few more codes to give away, have fun. And that's why I'm here today, to give you guys my impressions of the demo, which I put over an hour into. Okay, so starting up the demo, this music's actually nice, it sets the tone nicely. Whoa, dang, slow down, I did not expect Sly Cooper today. That was a weird choice, but the rest of the music in the demo is more appropriate to the tone. Calmer, more eerie, and picks up a good bit when the action amps up. But okay, starting this thing up for real, this is a Metroidvania. I've played my fair share of these games with Ori, and very little of actual Metroid games to know how these work. You, aka Swordsman number 8, have your jump, double jump, standard sword attacks, grappling and dodging to get around each room, finding items to help you progress further without dying, defeating bosses provide you with more abilities, upgrade stations for upgrading weapons that also function as checkpoints and restoring health. I don't know how far you can upgrade your weapons in the demo. I got to upgrade to level 3, but I also heard that you can go up to level 5, maybe even higher. Parrying is something I wasn't expecting and couldn't properly utilize cause it was confusing, despite being used to parrying in 3D games like Kenna or Sonic Frontiers Final Horizon DLC, but in 2D, that's a different story. Considering the tutorial mentions that red flash attacks can be parried, and I could not parry them. So I waited until they got close enough to parry after the flash. That didn't work either, so I just stopped trying. I realized upon editing this video that it was due to poor interpretation on my part, because the shield wasn't part of the parrying process, as that belonged to the other special skill dedicated to parries. Now I know I played way too much Kena. But parrying is an important part of the game since there's a devour button that only works on stunned enemies. But devouring is an extension of the Gaia mode. No, not that one. It's a robot Pac-Man suit, yeah. I'm going to be honest, after watching the short, I still have no idea how this even comes into play. Gaia mode is essentially a rage meter that fills up over time, where you're temporarily invincible, nothing stands a chance, and you can jump much higher. It does feel a little overpowered at times, which I think might be the point, to the point where a couple of bosses didn't even stand a chance, though the second boss still required going back to the sword fighter mode, so that's one of the limits for how it's used. The other one is it cannot be used in small areas like this maze filled with enemies like the Pukas from Dig Dug, another Bandai-Namco IP, that turn invisible and visible. Not gonna lie, it's kinda weird how we went from this cute little guy appearing in Pac-Man world to this thing.
What is this? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
These guys can only be defeated by spamming the grapple button, which was actually nice to figure out on my own, cause the game didn't explicitly tell me how to tackle these guys other than my normal attacks don't work. But in addition to the Gaia limitations, I did have some issues getting it to activate sometimes, which consumes unnecessary chunks of the meter. And I don't think it was my DualSense, cause to my knowledge, both my DualSenses have a bit of an issue when moving forward upon clicking the left stick, as they'll quickly jerk to the left or right. Thanks for nothing on the repairs, Sony. Though I think it did keep screwing up on me on more complex sections, like this one that involves a bunch of grappling and keeping a double jump on reserve. Then again, I did use the D-pad on this section and it did not seem to help much, so I don't know what's to blame here. It didn't seem to happen as much with the Pac-Man rail sections that seamlessly blend the traditional Pac-Man gameplay of eating dots into this Metroid platformer formula. Oh, did I just say Pac-Man? I meant Puck, as in a hockey puck. And I just learned that the name is actually a reference to Pac-Man's initial Japanese name, Puckman. So that's a nice callback for the 45th anniversary. Most of the spots where mini puck mode is activated were simply used for getting to hard to reach areas, such as the top part of the first room. There was a dedicated room entirely devoted to this mechanic, jumping between platforms and avoiding saw blades, once again taking inspiration from Championship Edition 2 Plus's boss rounds, and these can get pretty challenging since you can't stop moving. Thankfully though, you can take multiple hits in this form since health carries over between forms, unlike a traditional Pac-Man game where it's one hit and done for the entirety of however many lives you have. It can also be used during enemy encounters to avoid certain attacks. I guess I could have used it to go around the big boss and hit it from the other side, cause there is another rail over there, but I never got to use it as every time I jumped, despite aiming in the right direction, but for some reason took a downward 90-degree angle out of nowhere and straight into the laser beam. So that's gonna need some fine-tuning if it wasn't intentional. Putting that aside though, the only other complaint I have about this demo is I guess it doesn't technically end. By default, the demo's meant to go on for 15 minutes. Then it would say thanks for playing when it's done. But in the document they sent me, I could simply turn the timer off. So I never got that message after feeling like I've done pretty much everything the demo had to offer, until I manually quit the game. But aside from those issues, I did walk away from this demo with a good impression. Despite how it can look like a Flash game at times, but I'm not counting that as a negative, considering I grew up with Flash games. And it's why I'm a bit more goodwill toward Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny. Video on that soon, so stay tuned for it. Not to mention the game's only $30 across every platform, which is a steal considering game prices are getting higher and higher by the day. So I'll definitely be picking up Shadow Labyrinth, maybe not at launch, considering I've still got the big price of Sonic Crossworlds to worry about. But hey, I'll definitely review it if Bandai-Namco asks me to. I sure as heck wasn't expecting an exclusive demo to show up in my DMs on a random Tuesday, so I wouldn't be surprised if I get a review code too. Either way, if you've gotten access to this demo, what do you guys think about it? Be sure to leave everything down in the comments section below. Also be sure to subscribe and hit that bell as I catch up on lost time and get more content out for you guys. I got a lot of stuff planned, but thank you for watching and sticking with me during my hiatus period. I certainly appreciate it, and until next time.